Hi, welcome. This is us presenting our ideas to you. But who are you? Well, you're students from everywhere: Germany, Denmark, the United States, and many other places. But how did you get here? You probably flew or maybe even took a train. Either way, how you got here produced something called a carbon footprint. What is that though? Well, carbon dioxide is an odorless, colorless, and non poisonous gas that can be found anywhere in the world. When people do things such as walk, drive a car, or use electricity, this releases more carbon dioxide into the air. This excess of carbon dioxide can cause poor air quality and harm the Earth's atmosphere if there's too much produced. Right now, that's the issue, as I'm sure you're aware. So, how do we fix this? Well, it all starts here, at UC3M, through the International Student Exchange Program. Luckily, the school already knows that their carbon footprint is an issue and wants to do something about it. In fact, according to their values, the university actively encourages the personal development of all those connected to the higher education community. All our activities are guided by the values of merit, ability, efficiency, transparency, fairness, equality, and respect for the environment. So that's great news, right? Well, unfortunately, the school doesn't actually have any programs in place to reduce their carbon footprint, resulting from transportation of international students to and from the school. But that's why we're here, because we think you can and should. But where do we start? Well, because we're proposing a change with the International Student Exchange Program, we should look at who would be affected, our stakeholders. So, we have UC3M. Then, we have the actual International Exchange Program, which includes everyone who is associated with it at the school, such as staff and students. Then we have the international students coming to the school. Then all the other university faculty and the shareholders of the school. These are all our primary stakeholders, the ones more directly impacted by any change to the school. Our next group are our secondary stakeholders. They're still affected, just not as directly. These include the European airlines that the international students fly to Spain through, the United Nations because of the Sustainable Development Goals, other universities who may be tied to UC3M in some way, and the local communities around the school. But why do these groups matter? Well, the international students are the reason the exchange program exists, so without them, there's no program. But if there's no program, then there's no international students. So, if there's no program and there's no international students, then there won't be as many professors. And if there are no international students and not as many professors, then there's not as much money for the school shareholders. So that leaves 4 groups left. If the school is suffering financially, then there's the potential that the local community might suffer a bit as well, if a portion of their income is generated by students shopping and eating. And the European airlines would lose a bit of business from those international students flying to Spain. Other universities might be impacted as well if UC3M suffers financially or their international recognition is diminished. While the EU may not be impacted if UC3M suffers, their whole goal is to have every single person and institution putting in efforts for the SDGs. By UC3M not putting in that effort or not encouraging it, then these goals will be harder to reach. While these 4 secondary stakeholders may be impacted a bit, it won't be detrimental, unlike for the primary stakeholders. Okay, so we know who's affected by the problem, but how do we fix it? Well, we can start by looking at other universities with international exchange programs of similar size and international recognition as UC3M. We can see what their current stance is and benchmark or compare UC3M to them. Let's compare the schools on the 3 topics: their current carbon offsetting strategy, the university's attitude towards sustainability, and the country's regulations for sustainability. First, we have the University of Zurich in Switzerland. Currently, the school has a carbon footprint with 36% or 8,900 tons of their carbon footprint being produced by air travel. While they acknowledge this is a problem, they have yet to find a solution. Luckily, the university has placed a lot of resources and investments into sustainability research as a whole and might be willing to expand into carbon emissions. That's great! Plus, Switzerland as a whole has pledged to become carbon neutral by 2050. While this is amazing news, they have not made much progress, and 2050 is a long time to wait to have changes made. Now let's look at the University of Bristol in the United Kingdom. They were the first university in the UK to declare a climate emergency and created their sustainability policy in 2017. Actual plans, right? Yes, but they could do a lot more. The university itself is very positive and encouraging of being sustainable, with sustainability being one of its 6 key aims. The United Kingdom has pledged to be 100% carbon reduction from their 1990 levels by 2050. While they're making progress, they're not quite on track to meeting these goals. Now, as of 2018, the business school at the University of Victoria in Canada is completely carbon neutral for frequent air travelers. Before, this accounted for 82% of the business school's overall carbon emissions. The business school is now helping the University of Victoria in general become more carbon efficient. Makes sense, then, that the attitude towards sustainability is very positive. With an annual student competition for proposing ideas for carbon offsetting, students are very involved and encouraged to improve the school's plan. On the other hand, Canada in general has one of the highest ranking per capita emission levels in the world, but pledges to reduce those levels to 30% below the 2005 levels by the year 2030. Okay, so what about UC3M? Well, currently there are no programs for offsetting carbon produced by air travel, but there are plenty of other programs and research teams for the environmental issues, which means the school is still waiting to approve. That's great! Spain in general has worked to decrease their CO2 emissions by 77 million tons in 10 years, which is pretty impressive and on the way to a huge improvement. Of course, there's still room to grow. So, UC3M has an opportunity here. Looking at the other universities, it's clear that they all have a positive attitude towards sustainability and are doing some things to improve certain areas. The only area lacking in most of them, though, is reducing their carbon emissions through air travel, specifically through the exchange program. UC3M has the opportunity to fill that gap on research and improvement and help other schools do the same. But we still have the question of how. Well, we have to look at our triple bottom line: people, planet, and of course, profit. The people who make up the UC3M, the people who are causing the problem, the planet is suffering from this lack of effort to work harder for improvement, and the profit is the motivation behind most of the people who do so. So, we have to find a solution that combines all three of those. Have people work together to improve the environment around them without interfering with the school's profit. So, how will it work? Let's start with people first. The only way for any plan to be successful is if everyone involved believes in it. This plan needs to be unified effort. This will start with management setting a commitment and holding themselves and the school accountable to the plan. Through this channeling of effort, employees and students, already aware of the issue, will become aware of the plan. By advertising on campus and making it known, students, employees, and the community will be more willing and more able to be involved. By creating student research groups or allowing students and faculty to brainstorm and develop plans, everyone will become more invested and the plan has a greater ability to be successful. By tracking the school's key performance indicators, we can quantifiably measure the progress being made. These would include measures such as the amount of international students at UC3M every year, how far they're traveling from, and how much CO2 emissions are being released through their traveling on average. All of these will make it easier for UC3M to get a better picture of where improvements need to be made in the future. And all of these efforts are being made to help the planet. But what would that look like? For starters, UC3M should investigate carbon offsetting programs. Pick the most attainable one and then start a partnership with it. It could be anything like pairing with Sustainable Travel International, which uses the money to plant trees, supporting clean and renewable energy, and much more. For example, if UC3M paired with European Airlines to have a percentage of each airline ticket bought by an international exchange student go towards a carbon offsetting program, that would be huge. UC3M needs to set a concrete plan and stick with it. Now, you may be saying, won't this cost money? Will the shareholders be mad? Not necessarily. By incorporating sustainability into the school's mission, you're changing UC3M's business strategy. Now the school can re-aim its purpose to not just providing quality education, but making an effort to causing no environmental harm at the same time. You see, By building relationships and partnerships with carbon offsetting programs, as well as having a concrete sustainability plan, UC3M is drawing attention to itself. International attention. Not only will they be known for their superb educational standards, but also for their ahead-of-the-game environmental efforts. And lots of people care about this. That attention would mean that more students coming from all over the world, because UC3M would be one of the most well-rounded educational experiences available. This means more profit for the school, which makes for a happier shareholder. Plus, using KPIs to track overall income from international students, the most of carbon offsetting programs, and more. UC3M can be transparent about their financial situation, which also makes shareholders happy. By staying on top of their finances and taking care of any dips before they become big problems, this should not be an issue. So, the plan. The only way to be successful is to have a clear idea of what you want to do and when you need to do it. Let's set a 5-year plan. Today, not tomorrow, but today. UC3M needs to find a carbon offsetting program that is attainable for their current position. They need to partner and build a healthy relationship with them. We suggest Sustainable Travel International. Within the first year, UC3M should inform all of their stakeholders of this plan and design a way to hold themselves accountable. This can be done through KPIs and biannual or bi-monthly progress check-ins. The students should be encouraged to help keep this plan in motion and find new ways to improve it, as through competitions or research teams. At the end of the year, they should be established with the offsetting program and have a partnership in place. By year 3, the school should have 3 programs up and running, as well as be tracking their carbon footprint through their air travel to ensure that it's decreasing, even if the school's international population is increasing. By the end of the 5-year plan, UC3M should be partnered and actively working with at least 4 carbon offsetting programs, big or small, as well as starting to find ways to involve their community by holding events or classes to encourage students and local community members to help the environment and people around them. Maybe one of the carbon offsetting programs could be holding a community event to plant trees in Getafe, or giving the leftover food from the school every day to people in need to reduce food waste and help your neighbors. By this point, UC3M should be actively working on cutting down their carbon emission levels through air travel and starting to find other areas of improvement. Not if this plan is successful, but when this plan is successful, UC3M has the opportunity to encourage and educate other universities to reset their standards, to take a look at what they're doing and make some improvements. When UC3M raises the bar for international universities, those other universities need to keep up. That means that every single school would be doing things better than they are now, which means the planet would be doing better than it is now. Doesn't that sound amazing? The only thing stopping us is us. We need to make the effort. We need a plan that involves our people, our planet, and our profit, and strives to be better than the last one. This is our responsibility. This is our future.